Hi, Motheo. I'm Robert. I'm usually someone who's quite disciplined with money. I plan, I budget, and I've made some good investment decisions. But something seems to happen when December comes around. I spend more than I've budgeted for, I spoil my friends and family, and by January, I've overspent. I want to do things differently this time around. So what do I need to do to keep me from overspending?
The festive season often tempts us into overspending. But what if you could celebrate fully without financial regret in January? Welcome to Everything Counts. In this bi-weekly podcast series, we're frank about money and the particular discussions we should all be having. How to save it, how to spend it, how to grow it, its pitfalls, and how to make it work for us. On Everything Counts, we'll share the information you need to get your financial ducks in a row. In this episode of Everything Counts, we'll unpack how not to blow your budget during the festive season, and we'll also look at practical ways to start the new year quite strong. Hello, I'm Motheo Khoaripe, and joining me today is Investec financial advisor Nirvashni Rajkumar to help Robert and you and me spend wisely this December. Nirvashni, it's good to have you again here on Everything Counts. Now, looking at the December holiday period, that comes with a lot of activities, festivities, whether it's brunches, braais, a lot of boozing, you name it. A lot of spending happens during this particular period. We've even dubbed it DeZemba here in South Africa. But why is it that we're so prone to ill discipline with our finances during this period?
Motheo, the holiday season is always emotionally charged. It's filled with excitement. It's filled with family expectations. There's social gatherings. There's so many invitations that are floating around. And also this desire to create memorable experiences. And quite often we are so overwhelmed. I think the year end also brings a level of fatigue where people are actually looking for an outlet. And I think there's so many strong emotions that go with year end. So it's joy, it's nostalgia, it's stress, it's loneliness. And also people do brand this as a season to celebrate as a special occasion. We've had a long year, and all of that actually could even influence the most disciplined of individuals to sway from their financial goals at any point in time. And I think it's so easy for everybody to get into this group think sort of mode where we justify our extra purchases as special or even necessary for the occasion. So I think year end is not typically for the faint-hearted.
Look, I think a lot of advertising goes into it. I mean, I remember I was walking through the shopping aisles around October already, and I could see the red, green, and all the gold, and I knew the Christmas music is going to come to the retailer, and the advertising starts, and you start thinking about the gifts and all the things that you need to do. Just how hard is it to grapple with your emotions because you know family is expecting something, you know that you want to spend a little bit on yourself because it's been such a tough year, and just there's a lot of marketing on social media and traditional media like TV as well.
Motheo, I think you're spot on, is that all of these adverts and these hooks are actually to play on your emotions, and it plays on nostalgia, it plays on social norms, it plays on urgency, and you'll see constant limited time sales, holiday deadlines. There's advertising for gambling just so you could win some money for the holidays. There's seasonal exclusivities such as Black Friday. So it is very difficult to avoid these things and the emotions that are running high during the holidays. And spending can become a way to express love or keep up with others. And I think it's very difficult to avoid social media because there is an enhanced effort to amplify, showcasing something that's curated. You see perfect celebrations. You see the red and green pajamas in the store, and they look so cute. And you actually have to you have to buy one, but actually for the whole family. So I think the psychology of holiday spending is very much influenced by social pressures. It's FOMO. It's the need to create perfect memories, which can lead to overspending. Another deeper element, and this is, I think money wounds. And if you look at specifically the subject of money wounds in financial coaching, if we grew up in a low income background, we are now afraid to buy things, spend money and enjoy it, even though we have it. And so we come to a point in the year where now all of this pressure actually is sitting on our shoulders, sitting on our chest, and what do? We start overspending. So there's so many things that actually can trigger your spending. Something like past financial trauma, business bankruptcy, your professional experiences, generational trauma, the fear of missing out, the fear of not subscribing to the norm and to what the rest of the crowd is doing. It's what you see constantly that's actually just purely designed to make sure that you spend and you part with your money. So, emotions are a trigger point, especially when it comes to overindulgence. And the piece that we need to focus on is that we are human, and, these adverts and these campaigns are designed to play with our emotions and get us to actually spend more. And I think what we want to talk about today is how do we actually avoid that? And how do we clean up our feed? How do we unfollow accounts? Do we unsubscribe from certain channels that promote spending and product usage and lifestyle changes that we may not necessarily be able to afford? So as our conversation unfolds, hopefully we'll be able to share some good points on how to do that.
I mean, I do agree with that because I sometimes battle with the guilt of having worked so hard during the year. You haven't been available, you've been traveling, you miss some of the activities that your kids are doing, you don't see your family for very long. So almost try to make up for it when December comes, when you see everyone and you splurge and you spend them. But when should we start planning for the holidays, whether it's going away, the events that come with that, or maybe the gifts under the Christmas tree?
Motheo, I think, this particular exercise starts at the beginning of the year. And it is a carefully planned strategy that starts on the 1st of January, when you should actually be working through your entire financial life and sitting through a session with your financial advisor. But I think for me, holiday planning does start in January, purely because you want to set aside funds. The early planning allows you to spread out your expenses during the course of the year. It also does allow you to take advantage of sales and avoid last-minute panic buying and purchases. And I think if you have the plan at the beginning of the year, it also does alleviate the stress and anxiety that comes with the last minute planning. So as the season approaches, you should have a plan in place, you should have your budget in place, and you should have your cash flow sorted. So January is the most opportune time.
Perfect time to start planning for your finances within the household, but also very important to get in touch with your financial advisor and put him in the plans for the year for the finances, yes, but also what you plan to do come the festive season.
Absolutely. So I do want to take a step back in terms of, what else should be, should you be planning with other members of your family? Because planning around your financials and your financial objectives is not a one man or one woman show. It does include a community of people, and if not your family. So as much as, you take this responsibility on your own shoulders, you should actually loop in your family, so your spouse and your children and your extended family, because could you actually share that load? And we'll chat a little bit further about some ideas that you could implement down and through the year and obviously through the holidays. But it isn't a solitary exercise. It is very much a community-based exercise. And if you think back to a few decades ago, we didn't actually celebrate any special occasions as a single family. It was very much a joint family exercise. We had aunties and uncles and cousins, and it was a lot more festive. It was a lot more exciting, but the responsibility was very much a shared one. And I think that's something that we need to go and revisit, as opposed to thinking that this lies solely on our shoulders. In terms of the financial advice, Motheo, I think you know me. I'm a philosopher at heart. And for me, I believe that your financial advisor is your stoic partner. And if you think about what Stoicism is about, it is emphasizing self-control, fortitude, and focusing on what is actually within one's control, your choices and your attitudes, while not accepting what is not. So if you think about a financial coach and your advisor, the financial coach is actually somebody that helps a client to develop a financial discipline and emotional resilience during market volatility and uncertainty, and focusing on core values over excessive consumption. And I think a financial advisor is very much that person who is your sounding board and your accountability partner. And particularly during the year, during the festive season, they are very much equipped to help you set realistic spending limits, identify potential pitfalls, and suggest strategies to avoid any unnecessary debt. And looking ahead, they can also assist with setting financial goals for the new year, reviewing your investments and your savings, also streamlining what you might have in mind, because sometimes you may not necessarily be on track for your short and your medium and your long-term goals. But for me, your advisor is your stoic partner. It is somebody to hold you accountable. It is your sounding board, and somebody that does it without judging you and where you are able to be financially vulnerable as well?
I mean, when it comes to the festive period, we do know that we get things like 13th checks or bonuses if your company allows you to get some of that. If you're a company that's made a little more than you had planned, obviously you'll feel a little cash flush. How important is it then to ask the right questions to your financial advisor around, okay, I expect this amount of money in terms of bonuses. Yes, it's the festive season. I would like to spend a little bit of it on my family, but how do I actually make sure it sets me up as well for next year?
I think to get back to, financial vulnerabilities is that you should have a relationship with somebody that you're able to have any conversation about and also show your deepest insecure financial self. So an open conversation about your financial vulnerabilities during your financial planning session is actually crucial because it allows the financial advisor to coach you through one's insecurities. It also allows a conversation around a holiday budget and discuss ways to manage discretionary spending. And if I want to borrow from Warren Buffett, is that, every time that there is a tranche of money that you are due to receive, one should essentially be paying your future self first. And that is taking a portion of that money and investing it for your future exercises and endeavors. And of course, the other bits would be for, living costs, settling debt, possibly planning for a holiday. But there needs to be a slicing and dicing exercise around all of these extra pieces that you receive. And then ask about smart ways to use rewards and loyalty points to actually fund some of your purchases. So you're not necessarily having to come up with cash yourself to fund these purchases that you may have towards the end of the year. And then the other pieces is that one, a review of your financial planning is important and it's mandatory once a year. But at that point, what one should actually be doing is reviewing your entire financial life, because could you be trimming down on some of your life cover? And could that saving in premiums be used to invest towards this year-end exercise? Because as one ages, one should essentially have settled debt. Obviously, kids are out of the house, so you're not necessarily having to plan for additional life cover for them. So, should you actually be sitting with your financial advisor saying, okay, this is where I'm at. Do I need this and don't I need this? And if I don't need it, reduce the covers, and then you've got to do something meaningful with that saving.
Well, we're in conversation with Nirvashni Rajkumar, Investec financial advisor, talking about all the ways you can apply to make sure you don't lose all your money over the festive period. We'll take a quick break, and after this, have more for you in terms of insights.
A card as international as you are. Your Investec private bank account is multi-currency enabled and tailor-made for you. A single account, one card, 4 currencies, unlimited rewards. Easy, seamless, intuitive. Whatever kind of person you are and whatever your international needs may be, your Investec private bank account is multi-currency enabled and tailor-made for you.
When it comes to travel, experience matters. Book through Investec Travel to enjoy 24/7 emergency assistance, competitive rates, and the convenience of using your rewards points. You can choose to do it yourself or chat to one of our seasoned travel specialists. Plus, elevate your journey with In Transit, our premium airport experience service that makes every departure seamless. Because how you travel is just as important as where you're going.
Welcome back to Everything Counts. In this episode, Investec financial advisor Nirvashni Rajkumar joins me to talk about some of the strategies that we can use to make sure that we don't burn through our holiday budget too quickly. Now, let's talk about the top 3 things you do to make sure that you don't blow your holiday budget.
Motheo, I wish there were only 3 things that I could share with you. I think the list is actually, it's endless. There's so many things that we could talk about. But I think if I had to just maybe mention 4 things, is that one should always understand your behavior and relationship around money, because unfortunately, our psychological selves and this deep being that's within us actually drives some of our emotions and our behaviors around how we spend money. And quite often we have very little control, and most of us don't even understand, the pieces that are driving all of us. But I think for me, the earlier you start planning for your holidays, the more control you have over your finances. You've got to initially, I think, set a realistic budget. I think sitting in January is crucial, and this allows you to actually save throughout the year. It allows you to be accountable to your plan, because if you've got your plan documented, it does reduce the stress significantly that typically builds as the holidays approach. It may also be helpful to have something called a dopamine menu, which I've recently found out about, which is a list of activities that brings you joy. And it is often used by those that are diagnosed with ADHD to reduce decision-making stresses. And if you had to think about this holiday budget, do we always have to be spending money? Or is there another way of spending time with loved ones and indulging in other self-care practices? And I want to encourage listeners to actually revisit what they did in their youth with their families. What did you do as a young child? Because my youth was spent with grandparents, aunties, uncles, with cousins, with my siblings at home on these special days. And at that time, there wasn't much to do. There wasn't, social media. There weren't those sorts of influences. And it was just about being together, playing outside, being in the sun, having lots of fun, eating amazing food, sharing, and just reveling in our time together. And I think that's quite important. Is there another way to actually share this time with our loved ones without having to spend? So when you feel like, you've got this urge to overspend or shop impulsively, we need to go back to this dopamine menu and actually go and revisit these activities that actually give us joy. And then I want to move on to a realistic, clear budget for holiday-related expenses. Know yourself, know your family. And I think there's quite a few things that you could do. And I did that this morning, is that I have 2 young kids. My son is 7 years old. And I thought, okay, well, we are on the age of AI. I do want to buy him something special, but I don't really want to spend a lot of money. So I went to an AI tool, and you can use whichever one you want. And I said, I've got a 7-year-old son. He likes this. I want to spend 300 rands on a particular toy. Give me some suggestions. And I was blown away by the suggestions that came up. The AI tool went a step further, and it actually asked me if I needed a list of stores that had all of these toys that were advertised at reduced rates. And for me, that was a fantastic use of an app and time just to stay accountable. Is that, will that actually make him happy? Absolutely. And the other piece is that, will that toy be broken in 3 weeks' time? Absolutely. So do I want to be spending more than 300 rands? Absolutely not. But I think it's going to bring him a little bit of joy just for that point in time. Mom and dad really love me. I've got a toy. I'm special. But do I need to be spending thousands on this particular gifting idea? Absolutely not. So I think for me, prioritizing experience over things. And then how do we actually create meaningful moments rather than expensive gifts? Because I'm not too sure when we became this generation that really found meaning in buying incredibly expensive gifts, and why does everything have to have a cost to it? And I think for me, the one piece that I've started practicing again as a mom with 2 kids in school is practicing delayed gratification. And in this relationship that one has with children is that if you do something, your reward is this. And if and when it happens, then you'll get something. And it does remove, the pressure of family putting demands on parents and peers and anyone else, in terms of spending. So you I want to call it a cooling off period, which I quite like. So in my readings, they spoke about a cooling off period. And it's something that parents should also adopt, is that when a child asks you for a specific gift, because they're all very clever these days and they know that Santa is not the one that's bringing a Christmas gift, is there a cooling off period? Because if you ask me for a drone that's going to cost a few thousand rands, what are you actually doing in the year to actually earn that gift? And if you're not, will you really get it? So I like the idea of buying myself a cooling off period.
Look, a lot of marketers will tell you that kids drive a lot of consumption because they can twist your arm, especially when it comes to things like toys and the games and all these things that they want to buy. Which brings me to this then, DeZemba hacks around, not spending your entire budget. Because somebody might be listening to this and thinking, look, I haven't sat down with my financial advisor. I haven't planned like Nirvashni is saying. And now is a time where I need to go into this December period. yes, I've got money, but what hacks can I use to make sure that I catch on some of the savings?
So in terms of hacks, I think that, again, I want to revisit using rewards and loyalty points. I think there isn't a store or a retailer that does not have a rewards program these days. It's common, and it just means you're sitting and trolling some of the pamphlets and finding who actually is giving you the best deal. It is, really about making time for that. The other piece is that you need to shop early. I think take advantage of some of the sales, and you want to avoid last minute markups, because you'll see the closer you get to a certain period, the likelihood of you getting a nice discount on an item that you may want will reduce. The other piece is keeping your eye out on price changes, because you'll find that sometimes you've got to be a bit savvy, and a good deal may look very good, but actually when you go and do some research, you might find that the price and this good deal in inverted commas was actually a lot cheaper 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. So I think you've got to be a fairly savvy shopper. So if you've left it for last minute, I think by October is when you should start looking around for all of your items. And then plan no spend days and weeks to balance out high cost periods, because the temptation to eat out, it's year end, you are exhausted, everybody is exhausted, kids are out of school. It's easy to go and buy a pizza and a pizza meal. But for me, a pizza meal nowadays costs 700 rands with drinks for a family of 4. And this is a very inexpensive pizza meal. So, I think planning no spend days or weeks is quite crucial. And then small things like consider community gifting, Secret Santa, to reduce the number of gifts needed, to reduce the outlay of cash and the pressure that you put yourself to spend on everybody. The other piece is that budget. So you've got to have several versions of your budget. Budget for the year, but budget for the silly season as well. Is that if you've got a budget, you've got to stick to it. You want to avoid unnecessary debt. So you don't want to be maxing out your credit cards to buy all of these little gifts purely because you believe that, spending this is going to create a meaningful memory. And the other piece is that to reflect and to reach out to family, because quite often we assume that everybody wants presents or they have a certain expectation. But have we had a reasonable conversation with family members saying, is this something that you really need? Is it something that you really want? Would you be offended if I actually didn't buy you anything or I bought you something smaller?
No, around this period, trust me, they'll tell you they absolutely need, their life depends on it.
Their life depends on it. And then you've got to reach deep within yourself and say, okay, well, am I helping myself or am I hurting myself? Because December is not the end of our spending sprees, because I'm more concerned about the spending spree that comes in January. So I want to just go a step back, and I think finding a support system is that, do we start educating our families and our friends about joining you on this journey? And yes, like you mentioned, it is going to be tricky up front, but I think if you are constantly discussing this, and as South Africans, we are not really comfortable talking about money, but I think we mustn't assume that other people are not on these journeys with us. Many people may not necessarily mention too that, times are tight, may not necessarily be able to afford a big dinner or a Christmas lunch or gifts. But I would think that there are many of us that actually would need help and may actually want to join you on this journey ahead.
I've used things like paying off school fees for the year and buying stationery the year before to try and cut down on the amount of spending that happens within the 2 months of December and January. But how can someone plan for the year ahead before the festive season, before they get hit with all these gift requests and all the things that lead you to the spending?
But I think for me is that when, the best time is actually while you're on leave. So if you've got a little bit of a break, use that time to actually review your finances. If you had to think about, during the course of the year, I think life has become so incredibly challenging that sometimes I forget the days just roll forward. So there's never time to sit and think about sitting and jotting down your financial goals, your assets and liabilities, reviewing insurance policies, reviewing investments. I think during December is to use that time meaningfully to review where you're at, set some goals and make some adjustments, book some time with your financial advisor. I think to take a proactive approach to starting January with clarity and confidence is quite important. And I think building these good habits, these are not once-off exercises. It's an annual exercise. For me, it's an annual annual financial pilgrimage, if you want to call it, is that in December, I sit down and I look at what the year asks of me financially, and then I make my notes, I set down my objectives, I look at the resources I'm working with, which is income from my job, and what am I going to be spending that on, and where do I need to tighten my belt? Where can I indulge a little bit, because indulgence is important as well. So I think it does start in December. Just update all of your information. Then you want to actually kind of identify, am I being reasonable? Are these goals actually measurable? Are they specific? Am I really being a little bit adventurous, with my spending habits? Have I looked and reviewed at things like bank statements, and have I isolated excessive spends during the past year? Because quite often you'll find that people eat out a lot. We are in this area of online shopping, so we're constantly ordering food. It's easy to do that. It's quick, it's convenient. But are you doing it too many times in a month? And have you ring-fenced how much your life has costed you in the last year? And is there something that you want to remedy now in the coming year? And once you've kind of journaled all of these points, then we schedule a meeting with your financial advisor to discuss the plan ahead and get some expert input, okay? And then small things that I think about in December is, and how do I pack lunches? And I think I might be one of those over-the-top moms, because I'm very aware of how much I spend on lunch and how much I throw away, because kids, for some reason, don't like eating, because playing is much more important. So I look at, activities, and I look at snacks. I look at, where can I get the best deals for lunches during the year? How many times in a month should I be eating out? I look at holidays. Could I go into a hotel, or do I opt for a self-catering option? Is it a staycation? Am I going overseas? So there's quite a few things that you've got to have a sobering conversation again with yourself, with your household, with your partner before we get to the financial advisor.
Now, as a parting shot, Nirvashni, how do we end the year with financial clarity, first of all, and make sure that we can start the new year quite strong?
Motheo, I want to just say, I think for everybody to reflect on your financial journey, reflect on what's worked, what hasn't, what do you want to change. And I think also celebrate your progress. We can only learn from these setbacks. We can't be hard, because actually we can't go back and change. What we can do is actually commit to a plan for the new year. And I think financial clarity does come from honest self-assessment, clear goal setting, and ongoing support from your financial advisor and financial ecosystem. And I think the other pieces is that remember that this is part of a joint exercise. You're not alone in it. I think the more people that you include in your circle, the easier this load is going to be. And small things like a strategy over a brick and braai or a secret Santa is going to make a huge difference in the coming year. And with that, I want to wish everybody happy holidays and stay strong.
Some great insights from Investec financial advisor Nirvashni Rajkumar. And Nirvashni, it's been quite a pleasure having this conversation with you. You've helped me and hopefully a lot more others about getting prepared financially, at least for this festive season. Now, the holidays are a great time to spend time with the ones we love, and by being intentional about our money habits, we can enjoy the peace of mind of knowing that we won't be experiencing January. Thank you for joining us here on Everything Counts. If you found today's conversation valuable, then please do spread the gift and share this episode with someone who could use some financial calm this festive season. Until next time, happy holidays.
The views expressed are those of the contributors at the time of publication and do not necessarily represent the views of the firm and should not be taken as advice or recommendations. Investec Private Banking, a division of Investec Bank Limited, a registered credit provider committed to the Code of Banking Practice as regulated by the Ombudsman for Banking Services.